and policy implications on how to improve those migrants' well-being during urbanization. And China is from the 1980s, the urbanization degree in China is 20%, and now it is 53.7% in 2013. And especially after middle 1990s, the urbanization speed is very fast, and the annually increase of urbanization degree is more than 1%. And in the year of 2010, it is a turning point of China's urbanization. I think you all familiar with is that situation that the urbanization degree around 2010 is 50%. So that means China is changing from a rural society to an urban society. And that's profound social transition is not only an increase of numbers of cities, and also is not only meant increase of economic growth, but also have the meaning of the social changes. And if we think about the urbanization and the people's well-being, and actually, although people have some kind of element of pastoralism that think the urbanization is a bad thing, but in general, urbanization is a good thing to improve people's well-being. We could see that people's during urbanization, people's mortality rate declines, and people's people's life expectancy increased, and the people's education degree is increased during urbanization, and the urban infrastructure have fast developed, and the public health facilities and social facilities and transportation actually increased during urbanization. So in general, urbanization is an approach or way to improve people's well-being. And for example, in Shanghai, in the 1980s, the people's living standard is around 20 square meters per person. And although there are huge amount of people migrating into the city, and actually the people's living standard is not decreased, but actually increased during urbanization. Now the people's living square meters per person increased from 20 square meters to 35 square meters. If we look at almost every indicator from the Greenland to the average square meters of roads, all indicators actually, almost all indicators seems increased during urbanization. You could see that from the year of 2000 to 2010, that the water supply pervasion increased, and the gas supply pervasion increased, per capita road area, and the housing accommodation areas, and the sewage treatment rate increased. So in general, the urbanization is a way to improve people's well-being. But we also need to confess that there are good urbanization and bad urbanization. And urbanization also becomes a great challenge of people's well-being. On the other hand, it might have some serious negative consequences. Faster urbanization in China now make profound social transformation and also become a big challenge for people's well-being and for social development and for environmental issues. A lot of reports already shown that the fast urbanization in China also accompanies with waste of land, increased environmental pollution, and deterioration of ecosystem, overcrowded in cities, risks of unemployment and poverty, enlarged urban-rural gap, and increasing social disparity and segregation inside cities, and so on. So that urbanization might meaning some another side is a kind of loss of well-being. We could see some numbers to show this kind of well-being loss. For example, the left behind population, there are in China now there are 230 million non-Hukou migrants living in urban sector, and in wake of these population changes, there are 40 million old parents left behind, and 50 million couples, and of course most women are left behind, and 16 million children left behind in rural areas. And a recent study to show the mortality of old people in rural areas actually increased very fast. That is easy to understand that the old parents to take care of the left behind young children, and if the young children have some accident, the old parents also make suicide. So this increase of the old people mortality in rural areas, well, actually it is a kind of indicator to show the loss of well-being of old people in rural area, and in context of urbanization. And also in the cities, we could see that those non-Hukou migrants have the number of 230 million in urban area, and they are not equally treated in social service and public welfare, and will become new social burdens when they return back hometown when they got old, and also become a new social burden when they got old, and it is an emerging issue, and more serious now, because the first generation of migrants migrate back to rural area because they do not have the social security in cities. So when they come back, it becomes a new kind of social problem. All these issues and those crowded in the cities and environmental damage in the cities, we can call it as some people call it as urban diseases, and all those kind of well-being loss during urbanization, and could be regarded as a transitional well-being risk or transitional well-being loss in contemporary China, and these are big challenges for people's well-being. So in context, when we discuss this kind of urbanization, think the relationship of urbanization and people's well-being, and in general, urbanization increased people's well-being, but actually during a fast social transition, there are great, significant, obvious well-being loss during Chinese urbanization. So that is the context and the main purpose that China suggested the new strategy of new urbanization planning issued last month. And of course it is have a long time discussing last few years. And the typical characteristics or even the essence of the new published Chinese new urbanization planning is people-centered urbanization. And as my understanding, this kind of the people-centered urbanization is a kind of people's well-being targeted urbanization. And firstly, new urbanization is not only pays attention to GDP and investment, and also it much emphasizes people's well-being. And it have a change of the strategy of urban development. For example, in Shanghai, previously those Shanghai and those big cities in coastal China are paying much attention on the economic growth, on the increase of real estate, but it needs to, and actually it have already paid more attention to people's well-being, and to pay attention to the health promotion, and to the development of eco-environmental development. And secondly, the new urbanization is not only emphasizing the process of people entering into cities, it much emphasizes migrants getting citizenry and assimilating into cities to make social integration, and pay more attention to the hard welfare and software of those migrants, and I will discuss this later. And thirdly, this new urbanization not only emphasizes the role of government, and whatever strong government or smart government, it encourages market and private sector and all city builders' efforts to contribute during the urbanization process. In general, the people-centered urbanization puts people's well-being in the top of policy agenda, thus makes the improvement of well-being as a target and the driving force of urbanization in next few decades. So this kind of new urbanization is a new stage of urbanization and paying much attention to people's well-being, and that is a kind of a promotion of urbanization strategy, or also we can think it as a transition of the strategy of urbanization. And if it is like this, so the next decades and next few decades of Chinese urbanization is very hopeful. And if we then we were more focused on the population process during this urbanization, we could see a huge amount of population is migrants during this migration, and these migrants is those non-hukou migration, and they migrate into cities, they living in the cities permanently, but did not get the hukou of receiving cities. And this phenomena is increasing serious. And in the 1980s, this number is very small, only 6 million of those kind of non-hukou migration. But now, in context of fast urbanization, these population groups is 230 million. And that makes a gap of urbanization degree. One is measured by people living in the cities, and one is measured by hukou population-based urbanization degree. And the former urbanization degree is 53.7%, and in 2013. And the latter urbanization degree measured by hukou is just 35%. And this gap exists, and actually is increasing. And this increasing gap shows the lagging behind of hukou reform, and also this gap to show is obviously show the gap of welfare between the Hukou population and the migrant population. It's a gap, a welfare gap during urbanization. And this figure is showing the number of non-Hukou migrants in China, and in 1980s is 6 million, and in 2010 with the 2010 census data is 260 million, and among these 260 million of migrants, actually I did the calculation on actually 30 million is people migrate from rural area to rural area, and those non-Hukou temporary migration actually have 230 million living in the cities, and this figure is to show that in 2010 670 million people living in urban sector and 670 million people living in rural area. So the urbanization degree is around 50%, actually 49.8% in 2010. And the people living in cities, 600 cities, is 400 million, and another 260 million is living in towns. And not all, even in the cities, not all the people are urban people. They are all non-agricultural people. And even people living in cities, there are two different kinds of Hukou registration. One is agricultural Hukou, and another is non-agricultural Hukou. And we could see that in urban sector there are around 360 million are actually urban people, and others actually even in cities are actually they are rural population. So that also shows the urbanization degree in China have some kind of overestimated. For example, even in Shanghai, the whole Nanhui and the Pudong area combined together as a district, those populations are measured as urban population when we calculate urbanization degree, but still a lot of people actually are farmers or peasants, even in Shanghai. So, and in the urban sector, there are 230 million of migrants, non-Hukou migrants living in the city, and some 130 are migrants from small towns and small cities to big cities, and another around 100 million is from rural area to migrate into urban sector. So, in context of fast urbanization, this kind of non-Hukou migrants have a large percentage of whole population in urban, and this kind of migrants is a big pushing driving force of urbanization. I did the studies to show that from the year of 2000 to 2010, this kind of temporary migration account for 45% of the increase of urbanization in China. So this kind of migration is a big driving force for Chinese urbanization, and it accounts for around 34% of total population in urban sector. And so those non-Hukou migrants will be is a big issue, and is a big percentage of the total well-being of urban residents. And these temporary migrants have an increasing percentage of the total urban population, and they but they have less public welfare and social services, and this makes the situation of shallow urbanization, that they live in the cities but they have less public welfare, and make this kind of urbanization very shallow. This is suggested by Zhou Xuejing. And actually in 2012, I suggested this kind of urbanization is not only shallow, but also unaccomplished urbanization, because the majority of those non-Hukou migrants actually living in the cities for several years and returned back to their hometown when they when they are 40 years old or above, because when they get old they could not get employed, and they have to return back to their hometown. And this kind of urbanization consists of the process of people migrating into cities and people migrate out from urban to rural area, and it makes the urbanization process is an accomplished urbanization. And those people's well-being, whatever their hard welfare and soft welfare, is increasing important, and increasing those non-Hukou migrants' well-being and pushing forward their social integration is the base of achieving social harmony in cities, and will be essential for a stable and integrated urbanization. And actually, even migrants' objective well-being is also increasing. If we have a historical review, in the year of 2000, the most often discussed topic is how to make those migrants' children get educated. But now we are talking about the issues of those migrants to have equal treatment in entering into colleges. So that shows a kind of welfare improvement even for those migrants. But this kind of welfare improvement is very slow, and those kind of welfare improvement is slower than the population dynamics, slower than the large amount of people migrating into cities. So make the conflicts between migrants and local people, between migrants and between migration and urbanization more serious than before. So even we think of the improvement of welfare of migrants increased from during these decades, but the conflicts between migration and urbanization actually also increased fast. And migrants' well-being promotion is an increasing serious social problem, and their social inclusion and inequality is not only caused by their human capital and capacity, but deeply rooted in institution and policy arrangements. And now, from year of 2011 to so far, we have an annual research program of the migrants' dynamics analysis in Shanghai. And in the year of 2011, we did 5,000 household survey. And the year of 2012, we have 16,000 household survey. And in the year of 2013, last year, we did 16,000 survey, and 8,000 is for migrant household, and 8,000 for local hukou household. And I will show you some findings of that research to show the difference of the hard welfare between migrants and local people, and the thinking of and some indicators of factors associated with people's soft welfare, and that is factors associated with people's happiness. And those with that data survey did last year, this is the number of the surveys conducted in Shanghai is total 16,000, and we weighted the survey with the population numbers in different districts. And those are some basic descriptive data of that analysis. We could it shows the most recent situation of migrants in Shanghai and their difference of welfare provision and social and treatment between migrants and local people. We could see that 52% of migrants are male, and female is 48%, and the main age group of migrants is aged 25 to 44, and those population proportion is 40%. And we could see that the migrants actually their age is very young, and this makes a kind of replacement migration to provide sufficient labors for Shanghai development. And actually, at the working age, the number of migrants is more than the local population, and so actually the main body of the labor in Shanghai is migrants, but not local people. And although in whole China, the average education degree of migrants actually is higher than the average of the local population in urban. But in Shanghai, the migrants' education degree is slightly lower than local people. And even so, we could see the education degree of migrants increased very fast. Now it is 10 years education years. And that means the migrants, especially the new generation of migrants, have better educated. And this kind of better educated, they have stronger aspiration for themselves, and also that is a push to change the traditional industrial structure. Those low-educated migrants previously, actually, they can accept the low salary and hard-working lifestyle and get low paid and very tedious and very hard work, or even working in a sweater factory. But those better educated migrants, they hope to get equal treatment and could not accept the low salary and hard working or the dirty and less contracted and the worse treatment jobs. And those migrants, new migrants, new generation migrants, actually have better educated, and they have higher percentage of the people educated of college education degree and above. And those migrants, their average household scale is in the cities is 2.5, and their total household size is 2.99, and the gap means the people left behind. And also, if we see the number of family size is 2.5, and it also means more and more people actually is a kind of family migration, but not migration single or himself or herself. And the 87% of migrants are labor workers, and the estimated unemployment rate is around 6.4%. It is a new phenomenon because previously the unemployment rate for migrants is almost zero. That means if the migrants lost their job and got unemployed, they will return back to their hometown. But last year, this data is from 2012 survey. Even for migrants, the unemployment rate is 6%. So this phenomenon is to show that even they lost their jobs, that even they got unemployed, they will not return back to their hometown because they could not. They have no lands in rural area, and they did not have the knowledge of farming, so that will be a problem. And most migrants are employed jobs, and we also could see the percentage of self-employed migrants increased very fast, and even higher than local people. So that means the self entrepreneurship and the new business originated by migrants is a kind of new driving force for the cities, and this percentage is also increasing. The migrants have a lower percentage of blue collars, and the migrants have a higher percentage of blue collars and a lower percentage of white collars than local people, and they have lower percentage in the tertiary and the service sector, and a higher percentage in manufacturing sector. And it's easy to understand that most of migrants are working in individual or private factories, while the workers in government-owned and state-owned enterprises is higher for local people than migrants. And when we see this table to show the welfare of working, and we could see that less percentage of migrants got their job through governmental employmental services. They have less percentage of finding jobs through government and social employment service center, and they find more percentage of migrants find jobs by their own, and lower percentage of migrants got a higher percentage of migrants get a contract than local people, and lower percentage of migrants have the opportunity to get trained by the governmental employment training programs. And if we look at the income and the consumption, also there are significant, obviously change. It is also a new phenomenon from 2012. The average income for migrants actually is higher than the average of the local people. The average income migrants is 3,900 renminbi, Chinese renminbi per month per capita. For local people, is around 3,300.
Can I have a question? You mean the whole city then? Means Shanghai? 是上海
Shanghai. This is Shanghai survey. This is Shanghai survey. And this data also show actually the labor cost in Shanghai and also in.
You mean that Shanghai's all the citizens' average income is
the local people, citizen, local hukou population in Shanghai, the average income per capita is 3,300. But for migrants, actually is higher than local people. Actually, I also astonished with this finding, and I checked the database. It shows that so it is true. And of course, there are some sampling issues, but it is understandable. Actually, the wages of migrants actually is higher than average. Of course, this salary did not include those welfare by enterprises and social security issues, welfare. But the migrants' average weekly working hour is more than local people, and the monthly hourly wage is lower than local citizens. And the migrants have a lower percentage in consumption rate and a higher percentage in saving rate. And this kind of expenses of migrants and local people also show that migrants have a higher percentage of expenses in housing, and that shows there are less treatment in public housing schemes. And in the thinking about of the social participation, the migrants have less participation in social organizations and less participation in community activities. It is understandable, reasonable. And higher educated, more social participation, and we also could see that most migrants are living in rural area and in suburban population congregation area, Chenzhongchun, and the around 70% of migrants actually living in private rented housing area, and actually I checked the data in Hong Kong, 20% of non-Hong Kong permanent migrants actually living in private renting area. So it is understandable because lack of public housing schemes, most migrants have to find informal housing and private renting schemes. And it is interesting that even for migrants also have some public housing schemes, and those is for that talented young people. The Shanghai government is developing a new scheme to attract young talents to give more labors, and those people graduate from colleges, but they could not got local hukou, and those migrants, the government support have additional housing schemes for those people to attract them to work in Shanghai. So still 1% of migrants got public housing schemes. But the majority of migrants living in Chenzhongchun, and their social provision in housing is far less than local people. And take the indicators of social security, whatever pension or health insurance, migrants is far less than the local people. In these indicators of fertility insurance and unemployment insurance and pension and other social securities, and the health services of health archives and medical expenses reimbursement. Those migrants are less treated. Are less treated. So so there, from housing, education, and those kind of hard welfare of migrants, actually are far less lagging behind than local people. And if we think, look at the subjective well-being of migrants, and so far a lot of these studies of the subjective well-being of population groups are focusing special population groups of old people and citizens and peasants and college students, but still lack of studies on migrants. And we also a lot of study to show that factors like income, environment, health, religion, job nature, and social relations have influence to people's subjective well-being. And we used last year's survey to did some studies to show migrants situation of subjective well-being and factors influence people's happiness. And actually, the most migrants felt happier than before. Most migrants have higher satisfaction of their life and feel happy. Around 60% of migrants feel happy, and those people evaluate unhappy and very unhappy have the proportion of 1.6% and 0.3%. And higher income, more happier, and actually not if people have higher educated, it not always meaning happier, and people have higher educated, like after postgraduate students, actually they are not feel happier because they are more seriously, more strongly to fear the inequality. And actually, marriage is an important factor to well-being. So actually, marriage is well-being. A lower marriage rate, it means unhappy, and the marriage in the household is a very important indicator and a factor for improve people's well-being. And the first marriage takes for marriage, actually the remarried of migrants occupy the highest subjective well-being, and so remarriage will be more happier.
That's interesting.
But the unmarried get the lowest score of unhappy. And the next generation have less happier, and the higher social status are more happier. And we did some studies to show the indicators with happiness, and in general we could see that if people get higher social status, it will be more happier, and marriage will be happier, and social security happier. So we developed some hypotheses. So the hypothesis of migrants' subject well-being is that family life and migrants, family life is an important factor to influence people's happiness. That includes people's household migration, whether they are household migration or single migration, whether they are marriage situation, married or unmarried, or married but their wife and children are left behind, and their housing conditions, whether they rent a house for family or shared public dorms, and their inhabitation forms, ownership of the housing. The family life influences people's happiness. This is our first hypothesis. Our second hypothesis is that people's social life is an important factor to influence migrants' happiness. And their social participation, their cultural discrimination, their social network, whether they participate into social organizations, influence people's happiness. Our third hypothesis to show that their employment and economic situation influence people's happiness. Their income is important. Their job, their occupation is important. The stability of the occupation is important, and the income growth rate, and the first compared to the first job in the city, and the welfare provided by the enterprises. Those factors are important for migrants' happiness. And our fourth hypothesis is people's institutional arrangement, and whether they participate into the social security schemes and labor contract, health insurance are important for migrants' happiness. So we did some quantitative modeling on this, and controlled with demographic factors. It will show that compared to men, women are more happier. Female migrants are more happier than male. And so it is easy to understand actually female migrants have a stronger attitude or stronger inclination percentage to stay in the city longer and assimilate into the cities. And the new generation actually are less happier. And if we just do the modeling of those demographic data, those non-agricultural migrants actually is happier. But we can control those factors of the family factors, social factors, and enterprises factors, and institutional factors. It will show that compared with married people, unmarried people are less happier. And compare the people living alone, compare with people living with their family. If the people living alone are less happier, and the people compare with people with the ownership of the housing, the people renting housings and living in the dormitory and living in the working place are less happier. So you think of the social factors with people's happiness. The more social participation is more happier, and compare with less social contacts with local people, more contacts with local people will make people more happier. And if the people have fear the discriminative of cultural discriminative, of course less happier, and their income is important. And compare with the income, the increase of income then before they migrate is important. So thinking about those enterprise factors, the higher occupation status will make people more happier, and more important actually is the stability of the working. If the working stability is less stable, we measured that the people have more changed a lot of jobs. They were less happier. And thinking about the institutional factors, although it's not significant, if the people do not have institutional insurance, health insurance, they will feel less happy. So this study to show some basic findings that to show household, family life is important, and social life is important, and employment and business and the enterprise environment is important, and the institutional arrangement and the social security is important for migrants' subjective well-being. And those subjective well-being is not only influence people's happiness, it also influences people's attitude to stay in the city longer, and influence people's attitude to integrate into the city. Higher subjective well-being indicator will have a higher attitude to assimilate into the city. And this model also shows that this positive influence is significant. So based on these researches on factors to influence people's hard welfare and soft welfare, the factors influence migrants' objective well-being and subjective well-being. So it means that in improve non-Hukou migrants' well-being is important, and the welfare system and social policy reform is a key to improve the objective well-being of immigrant groups, and it is equally important to enhance the subject well-being of migrant groups. We should also notice that objective and subjective well-being benefits are mutually influenced. And those objective well-being construction should be based on citizenry of migrants. It could be achieved mainly through strengthening legislation for citizens' social rights and related institutional reforms, while the subjective well-being construction are influenced by more comprehensive processes, including social mechanisms, building cultural changes, and better social networking, and so on. So, trying to improve migrants' well-being, carrying out Hukou reform and Hukou-based social welfare reform is important. And this, of course, Hukou reform is lagging behind the large amount of migration. But how to pushing forward Hukou reform is a difficult job, because Hukou is linked with social security. So the changing of Hukou might the local government have a worry that losing the Hukou will attract more migrants to migrate into the city, and they will worry about that lose Hukou will increase the social burdens, increase the financial burdens of local government. So the local government is reluctant to take Hukou reform and social security reform, while it is important for increase migrants' welfare. And so I suggested the Hukou reform strategy need to combine various approaches together, decoupling the welfare with Hukou, and also provide social welfare based on their residency but not Hukou. And the third approach is increase the openness of receiving cities to, for example, conditional Hukou reform and a point system, which is now in experiment in Guangdong and in Shanghai. Also reform the institutional obstacles from other sending cities. So the institutional reform in certain places is also important for hukou reform. For example, actually not all migrants want local hukou because their non-agricultural hukou will provide them land. So the land reform and land market reform in rural area actually is also have some influence for hukou reform. And hukou reform and hukou-based social welfare reform is important institutional reform for migrants' objective well-being. And consider of the four hypotheses, we also find that the increased household and family life support and provide the enterprise support and social and community support and institutional report for migrants is important for subjective well-being. So we suggested a lot of policy implications on migrants' happiness and well-being. For example, in family life, actually we need to encourage people migrate with their family and encourage to provide more household-based housing schemes for migrants. And we also, marriage is important, so it is get a marriage support for migrants is not only helpful for their health, but also helpful for their well-being. And for example, those married-in girls have a seriously social problem and difficulties in their life, and their social rights and their assimilating in the city is important to improve their happiness and improve their well-being. So the housing and family support for migrants is important for migrants' well-being based on our researches, and also to provide social and community support for migrants is important. To encourage people participating in the social organization, to provide more community assimilation programs for migrants, and also provide more social work for migrants is important. So far, the social work programs are focusing on local people. Actually, to have more social work for temporary migrants in the cities is important for their well-being. And encouraging migrants to form good neighborhood relations in the community and make these kind of neighborhood relations are these kind of mutual supported relations will will be very important for community building and also helpful for assimilate those migrants into the cities. Another important implication is enterprises actually need to take their responsibility for migrants assimilating into cities and to improve migrants' well-being. For example, of course, the sweater factory is harmful for well-being, and have a more harmoniously enterprise culture is helpful for migrants' well-being. So I have no enough time to detailly discuss these policy implications, but as an inclusion, also urbanization is a process of improving welfare in human history. It is also a stage with several social conflicts and well-being lost during social transformation. Construction of welfare system and social policies are crucial to advancing people's well-being during urbanization and to achieving people-centered development. migrants' well-being should not be neglected and should be put on the key position during urbanization. It is necessary to improve migrants' hard welfare through welfare policies and institutional reforms, and to improve their soft welfare through better families, community buildings, and social work and better enterprises model on enterprises welfare. And as a conclusion, that only better urbanization could lead to better life and to help improve people's well-being. So that is my presentation. Thank you.
Any question for Professor Ryan? It's interesting. I mean, in Hong Kong, we do have this urbanization problem, but our living space for the past decade, we hasn't changed much. But now you manage to improve from 20-something to 30-something.
Even in Shanghai. Shanghai more.
So, what have you done right that we have not done right? How can you manage to not only the population size increase, but the living space also decrease?
The Chinese urbanization have something done right. That one important is investment in infrastructure. That it is a right thing China government done during urbanization. Not only transportation but the housing. The housing actually, because I have more investment in housing, and it is faster than the expansion of population numbers. So the people's average living square meters is increased. So we return back to the discussions on the resources and public services. If the provision of public services is faster than the increase of population numbers, so the welfare degree will increase. For example, hospitals in Hong Kong. And if the increase of hospitals is faster than the increase of migrants numbers, so it will be multiplied.
Very good. I like your lecture, very good. Just give a lot of information, very interesting. And so I just have, and you're just I'm thinking about a few things. One thing you mentioned about very interesting phenomena. You mentioned about unemployment of the migrant. That's very, that's the first time I noticed that phenomena. You already mentioned that. That's a very unique phenomena at this moment. So now we're thinking, generally we think that migrants should have work. If they have no work, they will come back, as you mentioned. So that's a remind us maybe how to solve this issue. Yeah, the government or maybe further research should be conducted on that issue. Another issue you mentioned about family issue. So I think that's another very important issue. Because family is relevant to the happiness, right? Something like that. You mentioned that's very important. But just remind me how to solve that issue. You mean that people should bring their family to the city, or and if they move because their situation is so poor, right? Most migrants generally. And so if they move to the city, how to solve the housing and other many problems. So any other first suggestion? You mentioned something about this. I think that's another issue. At the same time, you mentioned about, and yeah, you already mentioned that as an income issue. In Shanghai, I don't know the other places, the migrants' average income is higher than the local total citizens, right? So maybe I prefer next time you mention that based on the money per hour, that would be better. Because you already mentioned, in fact, they worked longer so that they earn a little more. Doesn't mean they per hour they're higher than local people. So that makes sense. That's very interesting. No, yeah, that's my quick comment.
The unemployment of migrants is a new issue and a serious issue. That means if China could not maintain fast economic growth, and the increase of unemployment in the cities will become big problem. That those migrants will become unemployment, and those unemployed migrants will be the source of increase of urban unsafe. So how to provide job opportunities for migrants is equally important for employment service for local citizens. And I think one important thing is to decrease the employment discrimination. That, for example, now the government is getting rid of those underground economy. We have a Chinese word of 黑 black, the black clinics and black workshops. Those kind of black things are always they demolished by government, and even the street vendors get by the 城管. And actually, if the local government is too harsh to this new initiative of small business, it will decrease it will increase the unemployment. So and we even demolish these kind of black things. Those migrants will not return back to their hometown. So they will find their ways to organize themselves. So if we get rid of demolish those kind of black workshops, so it will have the phenomena of black society. So they will organize themselves to protect themselves, to make a living. All black society is just to make a living. So compared to have black societies, why not to have formalize these kind of black workshops to provide new business opportunities for those migrants? So actually, the government is going wrong way. Just try to demolish this, but this demolish will not make the society safer. Just make the society unsafer.
You're right. I think this is relevant to the social stabilization. Yeah, that's where that's hard. Yeah.
Okay, any, yes?
Okay, I'm Yang Fan, the ESRI PhD of this department, and thanks for your Professor Ren's interesting sharing. And I do not have any question. I just want to say something. And when it comes to China's urbanization, it will be quickly connected to migration, rural to urban migration. However, I don't think it is a new topic or new thing. Rather, I think it is a biased discourse construction in academia. Because currently, the government's, especially central government's urbanization policy for mega city, for medium-sized city, for small-sized cities, the policy is quite differentiated. And actually, the migration policy or population policy in mega cities like Shanghai, Beijing, Guangzhou are quite hostile to outsiders. And this is one thing. So I don't think migration, maybe it is wrong, it's my own opinion. I don't think rural to urban migration should be the mainstream of China's future urbanization. Rather, I have paid attention to one new terminology, that is on-site urbanization. On-site urbanization, what does it mean? It means that the former cities, they expand they expand the border and incorporate some former rural areas into this border, and some former rural areas, because of government policy, because of government investment, the infrastructure upgraded and suddenly become an urban area, such as the establishment of industrial parks or university zone, and they suddenly become an urban area. So it does not necessarily means rural to urban migration. Rather, I take example of my family. My family actually migrate from urban area to former rural area, although this rural area has been called urban residence, urban sector now. So it is complicated, really complicated process of China's urbanization, not necessarily migrate from rural to urban. And I think to a large extent why currently most attention in academia, in China's academia now, pays attention to only focus on migrants in the urban area. That is because most scholars live in urban. It's very convenient for them to study this group of people, rather than some actually many new phenomena and very interesting, maybe represent the future trend of China's urbanization, like not in urban areas, rather than some peripheral urban areas or currently rural areas. That's my remarks.
Thank you for your comments. And actually, you are right that urbanization is a complicated process. And if in general urbanization is people migrate from rural area to urban area, and the migrants is a important issue. I do not say migrants is all thing. And this on-site migration, as I saw that it accounts for 10 or 12, 10 or 15% of the urbanization degree increase during last 10 years. It is important strength, important process during urbanization, but have less importance than the migration's contribution to urbanization degrees increase. But this on-site urbanization is important. But this on-site urbanization is not the future of urbanization, because this on-site urbanization is accompanied with land expansion of urbanization, and the land expansion is based on the land-based public finance, and actually it is a typical characteristics of urbanization last a few decades, but it have a huge amount of shortcomings, land waste, and something. It is important, and how to transform the rural society during the on-site urbanization to urban society is important, but I don't think it is the future of Chinese urbanization. Actually, at this point, at this position, we can see this kind of on-site migration is just a shortcoming of the old urbanization. The new urbanization will pay attention to the phenomenon. Of course, the on-site urbanization is always exist, but overemphasize this kind of on-site urbanization will dangerous be for Chinese urbanization.
Okay, we'll cut it short. Okay, yeah.
I have a question about urbanization. Nowadays, the pool power from from the middle and the western regions are decreasing as well, such as some labor-intensive work has been transferred to these areas. Also, the migrants that with the rural 户口will have more benefits. And also you mentioned that the family influences, such as the married people will feel happier. So I want to ask, do you think there will have a reverse tendency of people migration? That is to say that do you think the kind of the right choice of health urbanization is that people they flow back to their hometowns and enjoy a better life? Thank you.
Flowing back to their hometowns not always a happy life. There is a typical model is the success and the failure model. That means if people living in the cities, it is a success, and when they return back, it is a failure. But you meant the driving force of the people migrate from rural area to urban area, from mainland to middle on the west part of China to east is decreasing. It is true, but still the migration tendency to the coastal east is not decreasing. From the census data, we can see the most population congregation dating area is still in the coastal and in megacities. While it is true, the attractive in the middle part of China is increasing because of industrial transfer from the coastal area to the middle part. And those people attracted is those people in the same provinces from rural area to the county cities and to the big cities in their provinces. And the returned migrants always exist because of those migrants could not live in the city permanently. So when they got older, they were returned back. And those kind of return flow actually is increasing, but not the transition. The Chinese migration tendency have not occurred the transition from migrating to the coastal to return back.
Okay, last one.
Yeah, okay. I'll ask the last one. Actually, I want to follow Yang Fang's question. And I read some articles about urbanization in China. It is written by economists from Fudan University, and they encourage the max city development. They think the overspill influence of max city is quite important for urbanization in China and very important for the economic growth. So actually, Yang Fang mentioned that some kind of on-site urbanization. Is there any difference between on-site urbanization and developing max cities? Is there any kind of conflicts? So this is the first one, and the second one is what kind of the pattern of urbanization in China should be encouraged? Like, is this like towns-based urbanization or very max city urbanization, or like clusters developed in China? So that's the second question. Thank you.
Difficult question. And, actually, the on-site urbanization is a changed terminology of the town-based urbanization. It is some scholars like Zhu Yu think it is a typical characteristics of Chinese urbanization, and it is even a Chinese urbanization model. But actually, it is always exist for attract local people into the nearby county cities. But your main on-site urbanization is the expansion of urban sprawl to
to incorporate the peripheral areas of
but
the
the literature on 就地城镇化 on-site urbanization is town-based. The main meaning is town-based urbanization. That not the people migrate to other cities, but migrate into the same counties. So those are all true, and it depends this kind of on-site urbanization and town-based urbanization is a typical issue in 1990s, and in general it is out of date because urbanization degree have its stages. At the first stage is the town-based urbanization, and soon it found some shortcomings of this kind of urbanization model that it have the impacts of low efficiency and environmental pollution. So the urbanization is upgraded itself from the town-based urbanization to middle cities and the big cities urbanization. If we think about the main situation of urbanization, now China is big city, even mega city based urbanization. But this kind of mega city based urbanization is not only the city-based urbanization. Those kind of mega city now is sprawling itself to polycentric urban area. So this kind of traditional stereotype of urbanization is out of date, and those kind even the mega city urbanization also combine some town-based urbanization and those new towns, new cities programs nearby the mega city. Now combine it together for a kind of urbanization strategy. So on-site urbanization in general, it always exists, and in different areas of China, they will take different ways of urbanization. A mega city is not the only way for China's urban future.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we worked here hard enough. Let's thank Professor Ren for the talk, and also me giving And then everyone will be staying here until Wednesday, so I think if you still have some questions to ask, and we'll be most happy to talk to you. And this on-site urbanization, this how the board support the urban moving, certainly something that China has to face, China have to face.